Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and broadcast. Ooh, looks like we've got some background noise. Sorry about that, David.
No problem.
Um, but yeah, we've got the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream coming at you. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX. And of course, we have BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. What's new, David?
I don't know. I guess you saw my post yesterday. I'm coming off of a little bit of a high, had a great call that I just decided to sit in on with one of my sales guys. And it was with a pretty big client, a six-figure a year client, and got to hear how happy he is, not just with our service, but with our team. And it's like, it was one of those moments where as a founder, you're just like, okay, yeah, you feel really good knowing that, everything's working, the client's happy, and they're really complimenting and how happy they are working with the team. So it was kind of a nice little high that I'm kind of still living off of from yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome, David. I'm so happy to hear that. Would be really cool. Maybe we could turn it into a case study or something, but I'll bring that up later.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, in the meantime, we have a really great discussion planned for Deconstructing Data today. So we're welcoming on Kris Rudeegraap. He's the co-CEO and the co-founder of Sendoso, who you've probably seen a lot of on LinkedIn, but now on the Deconstructing Data podcast. Welcome to the show, Kris.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really glad you're joining us today, and we feel lucky to have you here today. So we're going to let you kick it off and maybe give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background about you and what led you to build Sendoso.
Perfect. So I started Sendoso about 8 years ago. Part of that, I spent about a decade in software sales myself. So I was prospecting, I was closing deals, I was building relationships. And what I saw was that email about a decade ago was becoming a bit more saturated and spammy, which I think is ironic because I think today it's even more so. But I a decade ago was seeing that trend. And so I started packing boxes, sending out gifts. I'd go to our swag closet, grab up swag, send it to prospects. I'd write handwritten notes, and I do all these different things. And I'd log it in Salesforce. I'd expense report it. I'd go to the post office, and it was just so manual and time intensive, but it worked so well. And so I dreamed of a solution that automated both the ability to track it, to fulfill it, to report on it, and that's where Sendoso came about. So Sendoso, for those listeners who aren't familiar with us yet, we are a corporate gifting and direct mail platform that integrates into your tech stack and allows you to really have a software-first approach to sending out, gifts and swag and direct mail and postcards, and you name it, we can help send it.
That's awesome. So I've been a customer. I've received products as well that I know were from clients that sent things on Sendoso. So totally familiar with it and totally appreciative of it because I truly believed in gifting as a great way, to build relationships.
Exactly.
And so would love to dive more into, let's jump right into our first topic because really want to learn a little more about what you see as the future of gifting, especially with, the introduction of AI. And a lot of people are starting to say that direct mail is becoming, even more, performant than a lot of long techniques. So talk to us about this.
Yeah, so you nailed it with, I think, the biggest future vision for direct mail and gifting is the use of AI. I think AI has come so far in recent years, and direct mail and gifting is one of those channels that haven't had as much AI influence. I think if you look at like digital ads, the behemoths like Facebook and Google, they've had like AI for forever. And so they've already optimized the heck out of the digital channel. But direct mail and gifting hasn't been optimized as much for AI until now and until some of the stuff that we're working on. Now, luckily, we have hundreds of millions of data points from the last decade of interactions and deliveries we've done. And so we're pulling in all that data to build this really interesting recommendation engine with the ultimate goal of what's the right gift or direct mailer to send at the right time to the right person with the right message and the right delivery channel, and using AI to do all that. And we already have some of that too, which is really cool. So we already have this smart messaging feature, which allows us to like write either the handwritten note draft or the printed note or printed postcard using AI and pulling in who the prospect is, who the company is, what's the value proposition, and crafting that note. So that's already super useful to folks. The second thing we already have is our Smart Send feature, which you can either put in somebody's name or email address or a persona like an IT director in Florida, and it will suggest gifts down to the individual, like Kris likes plants or Kris likes golf, or people in IT in Florida like cookies or like tequila. And so that engine is really key to the future and ultimately driving better conversions for our customers or increasing productivity. I think those are the two big takeaways I see with AI is more productivity or more conversion data.
Yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't even thought about like you using AI to identify the people. That's one thing, but I hadn't even thought about using AI to identify, what to send them. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I would love to see what it would suggest for someone to send to me. I mean, yeah, I mean, but also like that's kind of like marketing anyway. It's always suggesting things for us, right? To make life more convenient, whether it's a gift or whether it's an ad. But to your point, David, that's where my mind was going to is the data with the audience, not necessarily thinking about the data with what I would normally think is the creative, but it's the data with the gifts or the direct mail. It's just
I think that's personalization across kind of consumer marketing has been very popular for decades, and I think personalization and customization for B2B is becoming increasingly important. And now with data and tech stack and systems, it's becoming that much easier, and especially with AI, to create this very hyper personalized experience for individual recipients, thus driving better conversions.
I love that you talk about personalization that way, because just a couple weeks ago, we were talking to a woman from Optimizely about how personalization is kind of old news because everyone can personalize. Everyone knows your first name now, right? But you have to get more creative. And wow, certainly a touching gift or direct mail is a more creative way to really appeal to someone's emotion like we're trying to do in marketing.
Exactly.
Talk to us about, I'd love to, if you can, share some data. Talk to us about actual conversions and what conversion data looks like in a gifting scenario versus a non-gifting scenario.
Yeah, so I'll talk about this in a couple different ways. One is we have a recent data study that looked, I think, across 400 million data points from a marketing attribution company called Hockey Stack. They looked at campaigns and outreach that contained gifting and direct mail versus ones that didn't. So it was a really good study, and it wasn't by us, which is also nice because it's a third-party attribution company that had interesting data. And they found some interesting results that using gifting and direct mail doubled win rates, 6x second call rates, so second time show up for meetings, and then close deals 29% faster. There's also a ton of other interesting data points. You can go to our website and it's right on our homepage if you want to download that. So I think that's one big study. I think the other way that we look at this is just from individual case studies, which I think is useful to also look at. And we have hundreds of those on our website that are pretty interesting. And I think some of them, like Gong, for example, they generated 30 million in pipeline from sending out piñatas, which was really interesting. Gainsight, they generated something like 6 million in pipeline from sending out a book the CEO wrote. And another one that was interesting, Verkada was sending out Yeti mugs, and they actually went into really full attribution mode and figured out that for every $1 they spent on sending a Verkada mug, it generated $4 in ROI for them. So they are funneling money in there compared to other channels that are less performant.
It's incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love the real world examples. That's super helpful. And I think that, it further shows that I think, to your point, the future is going to be more and more gifting, but not only that, but streamlining it as well.
And tracking it too. Because I think to the point, we didn't invent gifting and direct mail. It's been around for decades and decades. In fact, it was probably most popularized in the 90s. But once digital came about, pendulum shifted and everything went digital, leaving this channel to be less used. And so when we came back with this software first, data first, technology first approach, we brought some of those same principles that why digital was so interesting, which you can track it, you can automate it into your tech stack systems, you can report on it so much better. And because of that, it makes it so that marketers and sales teams are using it that much more and seeing more results.
That's awesome.
It really is. So, I mean, I think we could continue. I mean, well, pre-show, we were talking about that article in b2bmarketing.net a little bit. And there's even some data in there about the fact that there is this transition. I think they called that article the state of marketing or something like that. And a big point, we were just looking at it, was that we're seeing more engagement from direct mail than digital. So it's not something like you said, David, to you, you're like, you just understand that like we're going to be seeing more of this. And I absolutely think so too. But it is kind of shocking to me because I'm, traditionally think of myself as a digital marketer. So I'm like, wow, direct mail. I did that back when I worked in politics, like way back when I started my career, we did direct mail. But I think of like sending direct mail to people who are going to vote or something like that. Older generations, not necessarily younger generations. But, we are seeing a shift right now. Do you think AI is the reason for that? Or what do you think the reason is?
I'd say the reason's a couplefold. One is I think other channels are becoming more saturated or more expensive, whether that's ad rates going up and are less effective, email becoming more spammy and less effective. So I think traditional channels, SEO included, are harder either to drive results from or are more noisy. And so you've got to look at other channels to augment that. Now, I'm a firm believer you got to do all channels all the time. So I'm not saying stop advertising, stop emailing, just do direct mail and gifting. But there's still lots of companies that were not doing any gifting or direct mail, or are doing it in really small manual in-house batches and are not using technology to automate it. So I think that's the first thing. And then two, I think because it's not as prevalent, there's scarcity. So when you receive a box in the mail, you're more likely to open it up and engage with it compared to maybe if you're receiving 1,000 emails this morning. And then I think the third is there's a bit of like psychological effect to kind of gifting, the reciprocity of getting something and feeling like you have to kind of respond. And then also the psychological feeling of just something tangible sitting on your desk. It's that much harder to ignore than just like an email that you swipe away from your phone.
Yeah, I'd say in addition to that, just direct mail as a whole, whether it be gifting or just, a postcard, or a letter. I think direct mail has become a lot more targeted.
Yes.
Years ago, I remember when I started this business, one of my biggest complaints, about direct mail was that, you're not shopping for a car every day, but you literally would get something in the mail every day from a dealership nearby offering you $500 cash back. You come into the dealership. Well, if you've noticed, you don't get that every day in the mail now. And one of the reasons is because the targeting has gotten so much better, whether it be using data to track, when you last bought a car, or, some of the things that we're doing with some of our clients, which is like, putting a pixel on a web page and tracking when someone goes to the page. So now we know that they're shopping for a car, and then we're able to invoke a direct mail piece with our clients to go out because the user visited your website. And so that's super targeted. And so now all of a sudden you're in this situation where, emails become spammy and SMS is like, everybody's like, stop texting me. But now, the things you're getting in your mailbox are actually targeted, and you're like, you get that in the mail and you're like, oh yeah, I've been shopping for a car. So now it's all more relevant. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
100% agree. I think data is critical. And then the best part about all of this is, if you're collecting that data and then ultimately you're leveraging AI tools or being able to build on top of that data, it's just going to be that much better in the future too.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. It's all about the data.
All about the data.
We got a comment. I'll read it real quick. We've got AI will cause a chain effect of ads, marketing, and even visual marketing with commercial development and the release of Web 4.0 coming out in the next 6 months. With cause a huge ML language, machine learning language spike to have the ability to take marketing into a way we can't imagine. Any thoughts on Jared's comment there?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, that's what's happening, right? We're getting better at targeting. We're getting more effective. Our ads are getting more effective. The channels that you choose can be specific to, to the data that you're using to target. And because of that, we're getting, everything's getting more effective, in that matter. And I think it's only going to continue to get better.
Yeah, the thing that I would add to that is I think with ML and AI, maybe 5 years ago, people were mostly thinking about that as, decision engines, recommendation engines. But now AI has brought about this new world where AI can make creative content, imagery, writing. And so I think that has a big effect too on ads and marketing where, you might have spent weeks crafting the perfect image for your ad. Now it's seconds, and it can be always optimized. And so you will definitely see some really interesting changes because of the kind of creative aspects that AI brings that, I think weren't feasible even just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, before we transition into the next topic, Kris, I want to ask you a question. So as we see this transition from digital to direct mail, and you being a leader in that space, like, what do you think you all can do to make sure that like direct mail doesn't sort of get watered down again, sort of like with digital mail? Like, how do you make it so people don't feel like, oh, this gift is just another, AI generated thing from Coca-Cola or something?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's something we think about all the time. And I think one of the pieces, or one of the parts of direct mail and gifting is this inherent built-in cost component, which reduces some of that fatigue that other channels have. Like sending another million emails tomorrow isn't greatly costly, especially on an individual level. If I send you one more email today, it's not like it's going to cost me another $70. And so gifting and direct mail has this cost component in, which actually helps provide a bit of scarcity and control so that you have to be more thoughtful, more personalized, and more cautious than kind of the spray and pray of other channels. Even ads, you don't, for the sake of, you pay upon click, so you can kind of close your eyes and put ads everywhere. With some of the direct mail and gifting, you're sending those out to grab their attention, and you can't retract that gift. Now, luckily, we've built in some things where you can send out digital gifts, and if it's not redeemed, there's ways to recapture that spend. But in general, I think the built-in cost component of gifting and direct mail prevents like abuse or oversaturation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. Such a great point. Well, I guess with that, we'll go into the next topic, which is to cut half your SDR team by implementing AI outbound with Clay. So we just saw Clay had a huge round of funding, and there's a lot going on there. So could you fill us in, Kris?
Yeah, so we've been big proponents of Clay for over the last couple of years. So we were very early Clay users. We saw this vision that you can use Clay as this data orchestration engine that gives you the ability to automate a lot of what SDRs and sales development, outbound sales reps were used to doing with copying and pasting, looking up data, putting variables into emails. All that stuff can be automated through the Clay.com platform. And so that requires less SDRs to drive more results. So you can either think about it as a cost saver and not hiring as many, or doubling your output is another, kind of the opposite way to think about it. But we're seeing tremendous success. I think besides the automating the repeatable tasks, another really interesting thing I think that we're leveraging it for is personalization of some of the email copy. And, historically you'd have maybe either A, the human would write it 100%, which would take a lot of time. B, you'd have these kind of variable inserted, hi, first name, I see you work at insert company name, which would be very templated. But now you can use Clay and feed it into like the OpenAI model and give it a prompt saying, write me a sentence about this company targeting this person with this value proposition in this for this reason, and it'll just spit you back a sentence, and every email will have a different sentence, and that's really cost effective, time effective, and a big breakthrough, I think.
It's wild. And are you, so this is something that you're implementing at Sendoso?
We did. We implemented it over a year ago
Okay.
and had a ton of success. And it's allowed us to scale our outbound and our pipeline more exponentially than what previously was a head count stair stepper, where if we needed to get more pipeline, we needed to hire the next SDR. Now there's an ability for us to scale based on the more Clay plays or tables we build out. So it's a bit more, what are our ideas? What are the creativity? What are the things we can dream up? And a lot of that can, one SDR can act as 10 SDRs in today's world. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's wild. And so you're limited only by your ability to generate creative ideas, not
yeah. And then outbound becomes a bit different than what was historically maybe a young, just out of college, first job, hit the phones, do mundane tasks to outbound, to a more technical, almost like go-to-market engineer type of mindset, where you need to be thoughtful on how you craft the right tables, how you're bringing in data, prompt engineering. And so I think the world of outbound sales is transforming from maybe a more junior level position to a very thoughtful, senior, more technical minded team. Now, I think you'll still have these SDRs that you need to respond and do cold calls and certain things there. But for part of that program, you need to have a more technical expertise, which I think is cool to see. And I think teams are now starting to hire go-to-market engineers, which I think the role that didn't exist, years and years ago.
Yeah. You're seeing the role of a prompt engineer, popping up everywhere
Exactly.
in every different type of role. We're talking about sales and in marketing and in creative and, everywhere you can, it's coming down to who can generate the right prompts, right? And the right output. So you're getting sort of less and less, I guess, to your point, of just those entry level roles, and instead everyone has to become an expert at prompting, right?
Exactly.
The future of sales, AI prompting.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that on the data side too, and I kind of like to play on the side, and somebody, I see my team working on a file or something like that, and I'll be like, what happens if I throw this into Claude and ask it to do this for me? And next thing you know, it's like a few prompts and I've got it to completely manipulate the data and do some analysis. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. And then I send that over to them and be like, hey, this is what Claude told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for all of us, it doesn't matter what role you're in, the more you can sort of learn how to communicate, how to prompt with the AI, you're kind of getting more productivity out of that, the better you get.
And it's almost like a skill that everyone needs to learn now. You'll be left behind if you don't. You'll be way less productive or way less effective. So it's just another skill in the skill set people need to learn about.
And I find I find from my perspective, a lot of times prompting is just coming up with what you would ask a person to do in this scenario, right? And so, because that's what it really is. I mean, Claude, to me, like, I use Claude a lot, and it's gotten to the point where, like, Claude is just my assistant, and if I want him to do something, I have to explain it in detail what I want done, and if I explain it in enough detail, he'll do it right.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
I think, I mean, it came easy for me as a startup founder and a leader because I, learned really early on that you needed to be a good delegator. And in order to delegate, you need to be able to articulate what you are writing up and what you need to get done and how you can convey that and how you can, evolve that delegation. And to your point, it's, you're basically just delegating prompts and telling Claude or ChatGPT to do something that you would have normally had to just do yourself or even ask a colleague to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Point. I mean, and it's the same thing, we were talking about in data and in sales, but also marketing or even like cooking, like there's just more and more AI involved. Like I use AI to make dinner literally. It's like, I don't have onions. What can I replace it with, or whatever. But yeah, it's just a new world. But anything else like in terms of cutting your SDR team by implementing AI and in particular Clay that you'd like to add before we move on?
I think just to summarize or just a few more takeaways is just to, embrace AI and technology as a, revenue or marketing leader and, go out and learn as much as you can now. I think Clay being an example where they've raised some money, they're crushing it, and we were very early on, a couple of years ago. And so if you can be early to these new technologies and dig in, it's only going to be that much more beneficial.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Just dig in. And we did get a question in from David. How are the models trained? And I'm guessing he's wondering about Clay, or is it Sendoso?
Well, I'm not sure his question. I can go in a couple different directions. I think in terms of the models he's speaking on, Clay allows you to be more of a data orchestration, and you can leverage multiple different models. So you can use Claude or you can use ChatGPT or others. So there's that component of it where you're just using those other tools just in your workflows. Similarly, Sendoso, we're built on top of the big LLM models ourselves, and we're just fine tuning it and tweaking it and providing data sets to it so that the results are and using RAG and using the results that are relevant to our customers and our audience.
It's a great question, David. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and move us on into the third topic, which is founder-led sales for PMF, but it's fake news. And then the other part of the title is you need GTM fit, so go-to-market fit with better data. So can you unpack that for us?
Sure. So PMF, product market fit. So for a lot of early stage companies, they have a founder that goes and is able to, or co-founders that are able to go and sell that product to the market and do a great job of it. And I think a lot of times they then take that and say, hey, it's time to run. Let's hire people. Let's raise funding, and can then almost take a step back at that point to realize that it's actually not ready to go. Because ultimately, I think founders are so passionate and have so much invested that they can sell anything to anybody. And so my advice to earlier stage companies or earlier stage founders is very early on, try to go hire one or two salespeople to prove that you can get a go-to-market fit motion going before you go out and kind of bet the farm, raise a ton of money, or rationally think about scaling too fast. And I think that's where data comes in, where you can better understand, okay, well, a complete stranger comes in, it takes them, a couple months to ramp up, this is the pipeline they need to close deals, and you can get much better sales metrics from bringing on a new hire that will really truly help you understand if you have that fit, instead of, thinking too early that you do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I have to agree 100%. I mean, the founder can always sell their product much better. They know it inside and out, and some of it has to do with them, the way they know it, the passion that they have. Some is also the buyer's perspective. Oh, I'm working with the CEO, the founder, or whatever. Like, you build a relationship with the founder, and now they feel like they have a little trust and understanding. And so I think that the founder always has sort of an edge in being able to
Yes.
sell because of these things. And so it's always that's a really good test to make sure that, someone else can sell it other than the founder. Because
Exactly. And then
ultimately you don't have a business if the founder is the only salesperson.
precisely. And then you also can build a better data model so that you can understand what's your hiring plans, what is your forecasting plans, all that I think benefits from, again, what I call go-to-market fit, which is bringing in some strangers to go do some selling and then learning from their metrics and the KPIs that they're driving.
Yeah, I've always wondered why I'm such a good salesperson when I'm a terrible salesperson. You know what I mean? I'm not, like, when you look at the profile of a salesperson, I am not him. If you've ever done any of those like behavioral tests,
Mm-hmm.
that you give to employees and things like that, new hires, I'm not a salesperson, but I'm probably the best salesperson, in my business because I have an edge. Right.
Exactly.
I have that edge of being the founder. So
Exactly.
And it's helpful for the business too when the founder does get involved with sales, because then you're also directly hearing the same feedback that the rest of the team is hearing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
always different, when you hear it yourself and you're in front of that customer and you have to respond to them. You're not hearing it secondhand later on. So hats off to both of you for, doing that, because I think it's really important all around for the founders to be involved with it. I would love to hear from the audience on that too. Like, what are you all thinking? Like, do your founders get involved, or are you a founder? Are you involved with sales? But anything else that either of you would like to add more on founder-led sales on this topic for product market fit is fake news? And the part about better data, I did see you guys are doing some hiring, it looks like, for marketing roles. So this seems like it was top of mind for you when you kind of went into how you can go back and use that data later on. But anything more you want to share on either of those things?
I mean, this may oversimplify it, but if you've ever had like a favorite restaurant you've gone to, and the owner's always there and he's walking around shaking hands with everybody, and it kind of just gives you sort of that comfort level, right? And you love going to that place because now the owner knows your name and just, whatever. And then you have, you could go to any other restaurant where you don't even know who the owner is, and the owner's not even a part of it. And you just kind of get a different feel from that completely. I think that's kind of like, what we just defined. It's like, the owner can always sell it better.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really know whether you've got the right product market fit until somebody else can sell it.
And probably from the sales team perspective, when you can bring the founder in, it creates more flexibility, because they'll be more likely to be okay with some customizations or things that the customer is requesting that maybe they wouldn't have been able to agree to. But yeah, I don't know. It is, from the sales team's perspective, it's helpful to have the founder step in and either say yes or no, or just help with some of those conversations that, maybe they didn't know how to address. But
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So anything more on that, Kris, or on the better data part of it?
I think we covered a lot. Yeah, that was a really great segment.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure we get to tech stack. So this is something we ask all the guests who come on Deconstructing Data. I think there was only one guest not too long ago who we just got carried away on topics and got to it sort of last minute. But we would love to hear from you in terms of tech stack. So we've heard Clay, we've heard Sendoso, but what are some more of the tools that really help empower you and your team to do what you do?
Yeah, man, there's infinite tools. Some of the ones come to my mind. We empower the team with ChatGPT, so I think that's important. We use 6sense, we use Qualified, Novatic, Warmly, Marketo, Salesforce, Mutiny. I mean, those are more on the go-to-market facing side. I mean, I think some other interesting ones on the engineering side. We use Cursor, which is really cool for some AI coding. Yeah, the list goes on. There's probably 100 of these tools we use. I'm a big believer in building efficiency through leveraging software. So if there's a right software product that could solve a problem we have, we're quick to say let's buy that instead of manually having the pains.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
That would make sense since you created something that takes something so physical and
Yeah.
kind of, like a lot of work, like mail, and turning it into like a digital
Yeah.
process that's so easy for businesses to send personalized gifts. So, Cursor is not one I don't think we've heard of here. David, have you
No,
heard? Is it
no.
Cursor? I'm assuming.
I believe so. Yeah. And our engineers love it. It's like a code writing assistant tool. So
Cool.
Nice. And we don't hear Marketo too often anymore. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is it that your team like loves about Marketo?
yeah, I mean, I think we've been on Marketo for years and years and years. There's still a lot of like Marketo experts in the market that we were able to hire from. Still using it for some landing pages, for marketing nurtures, for some marketing automation campaigns, webinar event invites. So we still do a lot of our bulk emailing for our database through Marketo.
Nice. Interesting stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your tools. And we do still have a few minutes. So I'm going to get into some of the post-topic questions, Kris.
Sure.
So if you could go back to when you first came into this industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Probably meet as many people as possible. And it's never too early to meet people. And I think that advice goes for all types of people, whether you're a founder and you're trying to build in stealth, like stop it, go talk to people, or you're a salesperson thinking that you shouldn't reach out to people unless they're the perfect prospect. But hey, maybe reach out to one of your customers and pick their brain. I think conversations can always lead to opportunities.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Especially going along with what both of you were talking about with just like founders doing sales, because a lot of the times those are just conversations. But yeah, just have more conversations. I love that. And sort of going off that, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from past jobs or maybe your current role as co-founder and co-CEO that you think everyone should know?
One of the lessons I built, and kind of builds upon the last comment, is to build an advisory group around you. This was something I learned years and years ago at another company. And so I have a sizable advisory group, 100 plus advisors that I lean on quite a bit for advice, for expertise, for insights. And I think that's maybe a bit unusual, but again, it goes back to like this ethos I have that you got to be surrounded by the smartest people, and you got to leverage your networks, and you got to leverage people's expertise. And at the end of the day, people also love helping each other. I think it's just kind of second nature to us. And so never a wrong time to go ask for help.
So cool. Such an interesting approach. You said 100 advisors?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Nice. So cool. Well, I think we can do one more, Kris. So what secrets, tips, and tricks can you share that will help us prepare for the future of, I guess, direct mail and gifting?
God, what secrets? I mean, I think the secret's out. Use Sendoso. But I'd say, yeah, I think it's still like a very underutilized channel. I'd probably bet that a lot of listeners here aren't using it at all. Which means, you could get extra lift, extra pipeline, extra, closed deals by bringing on another channel that you haven't yet optimized or you haven't yet streamlined. So I think the secret is that this channel is back from decades ago, and it's back with a new spin, and, never a better time to try a new channel than the beginning of a year, going into a big, hopeful calendar year for a lot of the listeners.
Yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. Good point.
100%. Well, this has been a really great conversation, Kris. And before we go, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you?
Of course. Yeah, I love meeting with anyone and everyone. So if anyone's listening, please add me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a note if you want. It's Kris, Kris, @sendoso.com. Or if you're curious about some of the topics we talked about today and case studies, data reports, etc., you can go to sendoso.com.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today, Kris. This has been a great conversation, and I think our listeners got a lot of interesting information and learnings today. Thanks again for joining us. And
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Absolutely. I'll let Jesse close it out for us.
And I will do just that. I'd say we also got a little inspiration to do some more gifting. But audience members, we also want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. So build authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences that truly resonate with your brand, ensuring that your marketing is hitting the mark every time. So let's bring you closer to your marketing goals, and we are eager to guide you. You can simply use this QR code that I'm about to put on the screen if you're watching on video, or if you're on podcast, just go to bdex.com and click the Talk to an Expert button and get powered by BDEX. And for anyone who knows anyone who would make a great guest on Deconstructing Data, you can send their name and their information to us at info@bdex.com. And any other feedback you have, go ahead, send your qualitative data to us so we can make the show better for you. And until next time, we'll see you later.